serious, intellectual, and a little bit depressing vibe, which I gotta tell you, rocks. I love that about them because they are not edgy. They were the edge. Hello there, girls and boys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be reacting to Depeche Mode once again, and the track in question is out of a recommendation that I got from you, girls and boys. The track in question is People Are People, and it's such a gem from its era, and it has plenty of personality that we're going to be discussing later on. And a spoiler alert, I happen not to be a fan of Depeche Mode, but I have huge appreciation for what they do, and I actually happen to love some of their music. So, if this is your jam, and if you want to see my honest opinion regarding this track, well, let's do it together. But before we go, if it's your first time on the channel, I welcome you because in here we analyze the music that we love from the perspective of an active producer and musician using language that everybody can understand in a way to expand our knowledge when it comes to music production, songwriting, and music appreciation. So, with that being said, let's rock and roll. Here we go. So here we go, girls and boys. People Are People by Depeche Mode. How about that? I gotta tell you that this song has an incredibly creative use of the stereo field. The stereo field stands, for those of you who are not used with this terminology, to the relationship between the two speakers that are producing the sound. You got left and right, and of course you got the phantom center, which is where both of those signals coming out of the speakers converge and create what is known as the mono section of our track, okay? What does that mean in actual regular language? That means that when you're mixing music, you have control over where to position your instruments or sounds across the stereo field. And in here you saw that they got that particular effect going back and forth between the two speakers, which happened often enough for it to be cool, but not often enough to become annoying. And as you can imagine, if you pan stuff around, you can make it quite cheesy or turn it into something super corny, but in this case, it's super engaging, don't you think? It's done even at a rhythmical level. The precision on which the sound is going from one side of the speakers to the other, it's so musical. Well done. And by the way, this is the kind of Depeche Mode music that I happen not to be that much of a fan of. Why? It simply doesn't resonate with me that much. I'm much more of a fan of the rock and roll aspect of Depeche Mode. This is closer to the synth electronic music. This actually reminds me quite a lot to Kraftwerk to a certain degree. But tell me what you think. And I think that due to the use of the drum machine used to produce the rhythmical section of the track, also the sound of the bass or the synthesizer producing the low notes, it's kind of super 80s, don't you think? It's one of the most 80s things I've ever heard in the last few days, because I happen to be a fan of this era of music, quite a huge fan, by the way. But this is something that is particularly exclusive to this era. Not only the sound of the instruments, but also the mix itself. It has a particular character to it. Once we analyze the mix together, I'm going to be delving a little bit deeper into those concepts, but just bear in mind that it does sound like a record from its era, and that's a very good thing. Now, What do you think about the sound of the vocals? They have plenty of effects going on them. I want you to pay attention to them once again, once I press play again. But the fact that I wanna point out there now, right now, is delay. And the kind of delay that is being used on his voice is a particular style of delay. First and foremost, what does delay means? Delay is a way for us to create duplicates of any given signal, and depending on the kind of delay, we can even add sync it to tempo. For example, like this, delay. Okay, and the delay being used on his vocals, it's super short. It's so short that it almost conveys the illusion of it being inside, of him being inside of a room, reflecting his voice back and forth like echo effect. You know, when you go inside of an empty space and you say something, and those reflections, which is your voice bouncing back and forth between the different walls of the space, come back to you and can convey the illusion of it being just repeated. And delay is trying to mimic that. And the particular effect that is being used on his voice is close enough for it to be noticeable if you pay attention. But if you're just enjoying the music, it feels that it's adding a little bit of ambience to his vocals, making it feel that they belong, that the vocals belong inside of the universe that is the mix. I don't know if that made sense. I hope it did. Now, I want you to pay attention as well to the sound of the gigantic snare, because it's not only beefy sounding, but also it got plenty of a second effect, which is known as reverb, which, as the name implies, is creating the reverberation, the reflection that I was referring to a few minutes ago. But in this case, instead of being mimics or replicas of the sound, it's actually just creating a release tail. For example, like this, reverb. Okay, and you can hear that effect applied to the snare in copious amounts, and that's also something that is super 80s. I will press play once again, and I want you to pay attention to all of those details and the sound of the mix as well. And by the way, I happen to be a sucker for all sorts of paraphernalia regarding music production. So if you happen to know what kind of drum machine is being used in this particular mix and this particular song, please let me know, because I love those details. Let's continue. Here we go. Short and sweet, isn't it? What a great way to finish off the track. I love that final section, and I gotta tell you, that final section represents everything that I like about Depeche Mode. Because that when they go to do kind of, how can I put it, like this kind of approach to songwriting, on which you see a little bit more of a rock and roll aspect to it, it's when it resonates with me. Very, very cool ending. And I also love that they didn't brought back that fantastic chant that was the chorus. And one thing, for those of you who happen to have the chance to see this song live back in the day when this song was the hottest thing ever, I can imagine that section, those people are people, got a been amazing, right? The energy, because it feels like it was designed to be chanted by a huge crowd during a live concert. This should have been a banger. Now, let's talk about the mix, because as I mentioned before, there are plenty of things that I love about the sound of this song. Let's take a look. Over here, girls and boys, we got a decibel, which is the tool that we use to analyze music through the use of a visual medium. For those of you who are new to this concept, over here we got two different analyzers, and over here the first one that we're going to be looking at is going to be the frequency range analyzer, which is displaying through the use of this white line how loud each of the frequencies that correspond to the human hearing range, how loud they were throughout the performance of the track. And not surprising, this is clearly an 80s track. It has this natural looking line, and I know that for those of you who are not as nerdy as I am, that means nothing. But this is remarkable because just for sake of conversation, you can see how much more modern productions look like. And now that you have that in your head, let me show you once again how this one looked like. Look at that. The difference is staggering. Why is that? Well, one of the things that makes the music from the 80s sound the way it does, it's because they were still producing music and recording it to be distributed throughout vinyl. And vinyl is those gigantic records that some of you watching might not have ever seen in your life, or you have seen them on those super expensive audiophile like rigs. But for those of you who know, well, you know. But those guys have many, many differences when compared to digital music. What does that mean? First and foremost, we're dealing with a physical medium. Well, it's material-based medium, okay? So it comes with its own limitations. And one of them is that you, depending on how loud your signal is and how heavy on the low end is, you will be occupying more physical space on the disc. I'm oversimplifying many things, but play by ear, okay? But it's something related to that. And that meant that mixers back then didn't go bananas, as you saw when compared to one of those much modern mixes. When it came to the low end, coming back to the screen, you'll see that we got this gentle but supernatural sounding. That's why I wanted to point out this that much, because this is very reminiscent of the era. And it's a sound that I like so much because even though it feels quite worked on, very processed, it still retains some form of true to life sound. It's not as exciting when compared to one of those super loud records from much modern times, but they are less fatiguing to the ear. You can actually listen to this music for longer, this kind of mix for longer, and also it provides a much deeper emotional impact, in my opinion. But please let me know what do you think about that. Coming back to the analyzer, you can see as well that we don't have that much of a hype on the mid-range, but you can see that it's kind of even. And that's, in my opinion, a good way to approach the music, because you don't have that kind of unnatural sound to it. When you hype up the lows and the highs, you tend to create this kind of V-shape like thing or EQ curvature. I'm going a little bit nerdy, but I hope it makes sense to you. And it tends to create a much more high definition tone, but to my ears, and not only mine, many people, it sounds unnatural. It sounds very, very processed. And this is one of the many reasons why I gravitate towards this kind of approach to music production, and also why I happen to like music from this era that much. Okay? Now, coming back to the analyzer, I'm going to take you to the second section, which is the dynamic range analyzer. And in here we see, through the use of these blue blobs, how loud the track has been throughout time. Very important, because depending on how loud a signal is, we will understand it as, for example, if it goes loud, it will be felt by us as exciting. If it goes quieter, it's going to become more intimate and sexier, if you wish, or dark. And you can tell that Depeche Mode, first and foremost, is a dark-sounding band. What do I mean by that? Well, their music is not as happy-sounding, okay? It has this serious, intellectual, and a little bit depressing vibe, which I gotta tell you, rocks. I love that about them. Because they are not edgy. They were the edge before the edge was a thing. That was a terrible YouTube joke, but hopefully it didn't land that as badly as I think. But where? Going back to the analyzer, you can see here that the blue blob, as I told you, representing the loudness of the track to all time. This is fantastic. Why? This is the first chorus. How do I know? Because it went louder. It got much more exciting. It became it hit us hard because the track allowed for the build up of the energy, the motion, and once again a sign of this being produced during the dark age of technology known as the 80s. And you can see here that we got this bump in the volume when the chorus hit, making it feel bigger, larger than life, and also more impactful. But since they already set the bar that high, they kept developing momentum for it to keep adding more emotion. And why is that so important? You'll see that they actually kept ramping up, and even they hit us harder when the actual big first, or not the chorus, the first big amalgamation of instruments happened. This is important, girls and boys, because when you're mixing music, you're trying to create or you're trying to take your audience as close as possible to the experience of being there in front of the band performing, because without the visual cues that comes from the band doing their job, it's very difficult to produce the same emotional impact. And through the use of volume and these tricks, you can create it. And this is clever. This is well done, and actually part of the reason why this song is such a hit. Now, let's take a look to the lower section, because that was the first half of the track that we listened to. And you can see that they kept the momentum. What used to be the loudest point in the track became the standard for it to ramp up even harder for the delivery of the final and beautiful and punchy final section of the track, which is the one that I love that much. Super well done. And you can see that the increments in volume were so soft and gentle, but just let me zoom out and you'll see that it's massive, the difference. Just compare the highest point of the first verse with the ending. Cool. And this is important because it's done in a way that it doesn't become itself present. And that's one of the most important things that a mixer has to learn to do. Because when you're mixing music, your role is to enhance the music, not to make yourself present in the mix by pulling off tricks that just draw attention to you. Because in reality, your job as a mixer is to enhance and produce something that reflects the emotion that the artist is trying to produce with the craft of his music. Make sense? Hopefully it did. Okay, girls and boys, there you have it. Depeche Mode is a band that I learned to like by you, because it's been through the recommendations that I've been getting out of you, Depeche Mode fans, that I have discovered many gems out of this fantastic band that I have always had a respect for, but I have never felt that attached to, because it's not necessarily my jam. But I know, and it's thanks to you, that they have music that actually hit me where it should. And if you happen to know more of those songs, please let me know and recommend them underneath in the comment section, because I would be more than happy to listen to those jams. But also, please tell me which one should be the next song to react to by Depeche Mode that we should do here in the channel together. So, girls and boys, that's all for today. And if you happen to like this kind of content, the best way to do it is by listening to music. To support this channel, is the best way to do it is to listen to music on Apple Music or Spotify. That happens to have a little bit of Depeche Mode to it. I'm not gonna deny it, but it's very different at the same time. So give it a try if you wish. On Apple Music or Spotify. But also, you can do it by following us on Instagram and X, because that's the best way for you to get in touch with us in a much more personal basis. Now, girls and boys, the only thing left to be said is that I should remind you that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about. And remember, I will see you when I see you.